bases dropped on another round of Soccer's morning show. Soccer Down Here. It's Tuesday Thoughts. Apologies for 9:06. I got distracted. I was trying to do some research on a story that I was going to bring up in opening kickoff, but it might just end up being, yes, I know, Coco. I just may as well have canceled. Unbelievable. I know. There's a couple of things going on, and here's your traffic for the morning. Bart Keeler from SoccerForUS POD is going to join us at 10 o'clock, so he'll start hour number 2. Later today, yeah, I am. And Sean, that is part of the discussion this morning that I did want to get into. There was, and of course, we all know why things are brought in. Thank you, Coco, for letting us know about that. Hailstorm last night in South Louisiana. Everyone is good. Glad everyone is good. Obviously, our thoughts are with morning, David, everyone in Rolling Fork and everyone in Mississippi, obviously, and all of our love and vibes, best vibes to everyone in Nashville as well. A bunch of different reasons for that. But, Sean, to your point, there was something that I came across in my morning research. And it comes from our friends at the Telegraph, and I'll get into it. It's not quite opening kickoff material because obviously folks are focused on what's going on with Spurs. But here's the headline for later in the show. Jamie Carragher wrote a column for the Telegraph, and he just decided to go ahead and take a blowtorch to everything. I know you're shocked. Headline for later. Antonio Conte is like an arsonist. Daniel Levy had no choice but to sack him. The Italians' reign at Spurs descended into a masterclass in shifting responsibility, and something had to give. So that will be later. Tafka's question later. But actually, you know what, Tafka? We can probably QOD. We can probably go ahead and start it now. What happened to the year-round NCAA soccer season? I have heard nothing about it. I have heard no updates. NCAA soccer. Let's do a search calendar. NCAA soccer calendar. Updates, recruiting rules. Because I haven't seen any kind of an update on that idea. Bam is in quickly this morning. Ecuador, Australia, great match. Shame Sifu and Palacios didn't start. Sifu got 5 minutes at the end. Maybe, Bam, there are conversations between Steve Cherundolo and national teams. Hey, can you do me a solid since it's the second match in the group? Because Denny Boanga, 13-hour flight, 19 minutes in, scores a goal, played 25 minutes, and helped your LAFC to a win over FC Dallas. Maybe there are conversations. But like I said, we'll get into the men's national team in hour number 2. Coco, I guess we're heading this. So, maybe Bam, it's just something where Cherundolo sits there and goes, you knock on the door. Can you do me a favor here for a second? I need you to do something. Can you not play him at all? I think we've evolved into opening kickoff, and it has to do with Antonio Conte. But yeah, so there's plenty to talk about this morning. Here, domestically, we still got to discuss what happened in Major League Soccer outside of Atlanta United, those matches. On that note, Bam comes in. He's in and out. Night, get your rest. We'll see you tomorrow. We got that. We got stuff going on overseas. We have stuff involving MLS players going on overseas. Interesting things involving law enforcement that we need to get into, and all of that. So I guess we'll go ahead. We'll go ahead and do it. All right. Opening kickoff. Hang on. So, all right. So Coco is there. You're having me do all kinds of technology here. Opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. And what you do is with your opening kickoff and Kickoff Coffee, what you end up doing is when you purchase everything from Kickoff Coffee, it is rolled over. Use the code SoccerDownHere15, take 15% off of your purchase. They in turn take 10%, roll it over into youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Bern, to answer your question, our next high school matches are Thursday, and looking to try to broadcast Starsmill and McIntosh, because last time I checked, they're not fans of each other. And so we'll keep an eye on that as we get toward the end of the regular season. So leaning towards Starsmill and McIntosh. We'll keep you posted on that for your Thursday. Traffic, we're still doing some interviews for In Session. Caught up with the boys head coach down at Richmond Hill, and that will be a part of the In Session interviews for the show that comes out tomorrow night. Hoping to catch up with Heather Richardson, the head coach at Social Circle, and that will be your girls interview for In Session. But Jason will be hosting Soccer's In Session, brought to us by our friends at Kaiser Permanente. And so he'll go through all of the games, all the regions, all the setup, as we're getting winding down toward the end of the high school season when it comes to region play. Our next action hopefully will be Thursday night. Like I said, looking to do Starsmill and McIntosh. We'll keep you posted. That's the number one game on our list. Our in-session interviews are Richmond Hill, and looking to connect with our friends at Social Circle. So those will be your focus, your foci for the in-session interviews there. All right. Since everybody's been talking about it, all right, we'll go ahead. I know what Jamie Carragher is doing. You know, like Antonio Conte is like an arsonist. Yes, it was an op-ed piece. So what does Jamie Carragher decide to do? He wants to set the whole thing on fire all over again. So here's what he says, and we'll get into the whole stuff with Barry and coaches and things like that. So this seems to have just dropped into the lead off this morning. So here we go. So Jamie Carragher. Certain types of managers who specialize as firefighters, others who love being fire starters. Antonio Conte is like an arsonist. Wherever he goes, you can guarantee it'll be bonfire night several times a year. The show is over for such managers, certainly at the highest level. They exhaust the energy of players, directors, and ultimately supporters. Tolerated if they win, but relieving stress levels within their organization when they inevitably depart after one detonation too many. And apparently, the last 5 managers for Spurs have been paid a total of $67.5 million. Tim Sherwood was not paid any extra money because he was in-house. Mourinho realized at the end of his time in English football, there's less acceptance of this management style. My old boss, Liverpool Rafa Benitez, has had to drop down the levels in search of work too. These managers have never been averse to exposing internal division, where many coaches have an us against them philosophy. Others, too, are willing to make it us against us, or even me against you. Conte, like his Spurs predecessor Mourinho, has proven to be a great manager of his era, capable of delivering the biggest honors, but more as CV includes repeated examples of bust-ups with players and directors and owners find themselves unsure whether to watch press conferences or hide behind the sofa whenever one comes on screen, the less attractive it is to potential employers. Managers who believe it is their job to challenge their hierarchy will never bring long-term stability. The capacity to be serial winners will always mean the phone never stops ringing, but when the trophies dry up, it is no wonder the biggest clubs are more cautious before hiring a combustible personality. Once again, Carragher. I love passionate football managers. I want to see whoever's coaching my club living every moment on that touchline, ecstatic in victory, deflated in defeat. With Conte, his heart's on his sleeve. But that has to be channeled in the right direction. Look at Sir Alex Ferguson at Manchester United, Pep Guardiola, Manchester City, Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool. Did they or do they ever publicly criticize their clubs or players? If so, it is unusual and calculated. Their players have felt like they've had to take on everyone else. Opposition referees, Premier League Football Association. It creates a spirit within the dressing room. Go back 15 years, and every up-and-coming coach wanted to be either Mourinho or Guardiola. Not now. Pep is the template. Others follow. Continuously blaming players or internal club policies comes across as self-serving and deliberately distracting from poor results and performances. Conte's Spurs reign descended into a masterclass in shifting responsibility. When Richarlison recently spoke about his frustration about lack of game time, Conte said there was too much reference to I and not enough about we. You do not have to make a huge leap to understand why players might find that hypocritical. For neutrals and pundits, such outspoken managers are very entertaining, of course. The clip of Conte's press conference after Spurs' 3-3 draw was replayed on a loop in the hours and days which followed, making for gripping television. But for those running Spurs and responsible for how they're perceived around the world, it was an embarrassment. There could be only one outcome. You cannot publicly slaughter the organization you work and expect to stay in your job. Daniel Levy had no choice. Probably would have got rid of Conte on the night of the Southampton game, fully justified too, but for legal complexities. Conte would have not made those remarks had Spurs held out for another 3 minutes and won 3-2. They would have gone third in the Premier League, been in a stronger position to finish top 4. What more can Spurs expect? Conte moved to North London and accepted a £15 million a year contract with his eyes open. He knew there was no prospect of competing financially with Manchester City, Manchester United, and Chelsea. The only way to get closer was with shrewd signings and the kind of on-field strategy that brought success at his previous clubs. Liverpool and Chelsea's problems this season opened the door for a successive top 4 finish, which relative to Tottenham's recent history is a solid achievement. No one in football, not even Spurs fans, expected Spurs to win the Premier League or Champions League this season. Speak to Harry Kane or any member of the squad, they would have said finishing 4th was the first priority. Adding the FA Cup or Carabao Cup, I almost said gummy bear. If I inserted gummy bear into the Jamie Carragher discussion, that would have been funny. Would offer an excellent foundation upon which to build going into next year, creating a positive momentum. Instead, they were beaten in cups after terrible performances at Nottingham Forest on the way to championship club Sheffield United. What does that have to do with Levy or Spurs owners? Did Levy pick the team, determine the tactics? That was entirely on the manager. Conte was also backed in the transfer market. How many Premier League clubs paid £60 million for a backup striker this last summer? Richarlison was the preferred striker for Brazil at the World Cup, so let's not hear any more about Spurs being too tight with their resources going into this season. Under Mauricio Pochettino, Spurs had a fine team, which at best was attractive as any in Europe. What they lacked was the extra 1% to transform them from genuine Premier League and Champions League contenders into winners. There is valid criticism of Levy and Spurs board for their failure to grasp the nettle when the side was on the cusp of success. We can get into that separately. He gambled on Mourinho and Conte knowing they were high maintenance and more defensive coaches, but confident they would win a trophy. I'm less convinced Levy's the boogeyman in this case, although I'm sure he will learn from the experience. I know, Sean, you disagree. Spurs' best manager of the last 20 years was a hungry, aspiring coach. Makes sense to look for the same profile as they look for a new manager, which is why Roberto De Zerbi brings similar vibes to the young Pochettino. Ruben Amorim fits the bill too, and no doubt there'll be due diligence undertaken as to why Julian Nagelsmann was so brutally dismissed with Bayern, still competing for the Bundesliga and Champions League. Burned? Please let us know what you think about that in the timeline. What is guaranteed is Levy will not want to go back down the route of hiring a coach with a reputation for bringing bust-ups and glory. Unfortunately for Spurs with Conte, they had the former and not the latter. And so, of course, Daniel Levy has ramped up the search. Nagelsmann is his number one choice. And that will be where your research is. Spurs considering announcing a price rise. Okay, here we go. This gets even better, Sean. From our friends at the Telegraph, they understand Spurs are considering announcing a price rise to season tickets at a time when the faith of supporters is being tested again and many are being hit by the cost of living crisis. Also, growing doubt over the future of Fabio Paratici. No current sign of striker Harry Kane renewing his contract. 1 year left on it at the end of the season. 12th manager. This is from Matt Law at the Telegraph, by the way. 12th permanent manager in 22 years will be the next one Daniel Levy hires. Prompting the club's supporters trust to call on the board to share their strategy for the future. 12th permanent manager in 22 years. Nagelsmann heads up the list. De Zerbi, Postecoglou, Luis Enrique understood among those who feature prominently. Nagelsmann said to have a strong affinity for Tottenham, even owned a club replica shirt, but the German could also find himself on the radar of Real Madrid at the end of the season. Tottenham want to talk to Nagelsmann. Levy will also want immediately start making background checks on other potential candidates for the full-time Spurs job, having put Christian Stellini and Ryan Mason in the interim charge. Emerson Royal requiring surgery after damaging his knee playing for Brazil. Left side defender Ben Davies last week ruled out 4 to 6 weeks on a hamstring injury. Levy may have to lead the hunt. Once again, this is Matt Law at the Telegraph. Levy may have to lead the hunt for the next manager as doubt grows over the future managing director of football, Paratici, whose sources have noted he was conspicuous by his absence in the statement confirming the exit of Antonio Conte. Paratici's been far less visible since being hit with a ban in Italy as part of an investigation into alleged malpractice at Juve, and has mainly watched matches from the director's box rather than from behind the dugout. Uncertainty surrounding Paratici could further be complicated by the court case that's been postponed till May 10. Preliminary hearing of the criminal investigation into capital gains and salary maneuvers of Juve and individuals who worked at the club, in which Paratici has been named among the defendants, started Monday, almost immediately just put back by 6 weeks. So you have questions over Paratici. Increasingly likely, according to law, that he leaves at the end of the year. Spurs yet to announce their season ticket prices for next season. Frozen prices last year. Club have pointed out there's been no confirmation of an increase yet. Law has been told consideration has been given to announcing a sizable price increase for season tickets, which are already the most expensive in the Premier League. And I don't believe that there's any talk. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I don't know if they have a sponsorship, a title sponsor for the stadium yet. You increase ticket prices. Once again, folks ain't going to be happy about that, considering the Spurs haven't lifted a trophy in 15 years. Chelsea, remember, they faced a backlash over price increases last year. They rolled that back. Club Supporters Trust has already appealed to the owners not to increase prices this year amid the cost of living crisis. Following confirmation of Conte's exit, Spurs Supporters Trust released a statement. Said, quote, "Club's board must now have a clear strategy for what and who comes next. Needs to tell this club's supporters what the plan is. The trust has repeatedly called for this. The fans deserve it." Less than 2 years ago, at the end of the 2021 season, Daniel Levy told supporters the club would focus on the recruitment of a head coach, saying they were, quote, "acutely aware of the need to select someone whose values reflect those of our great club and a return to playing football with the style with which we are known." Many supporters, once again the trust, will feel the appointments of Nuno and then Conte following Mourinho's spell do not reflect the promises made above. In the same statement, Mr. Levy said, "I feel we lost sight of some key priorities and what's truly in our DNA." Trust continues as another season without silverware comes to an end. We'd urge the club's board to reassess those priorities before appointing a manager. The entire fan base will get behind building a team that can truly challenge domestic and European honors, respecting the traditions of our European football club. So, you got that this morning. Okay, so Michael Head, thank you for that. It's still Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I get it. I know that you're chasing after a title sponsor to help defray some costs, and I know that at one point Amazon was involved. But, yeah, I've seen nothing when it comes to anything involving that. So, yeah, Sean, we're trying to figure out Spurs manager. And would love to know who that is. Coco, and the biggest thing, I think that with Conte, I think obviously he takes some time for himself. I mean, remember this season he's had gallbladder surgery. And he's also got folks close to him who passed away that were his age. So when you have very, very close friends who pass away and you're going through stuff yourself, I think that this is that time of Antonio Conte taking reflection. Then, of course, probably halfway through next season, he's like, I've reflected enough. I want to get back in. Somebody will appoint him as manager, probably closer to home. That kind of stuff. Coco. See, this is where next time Nick comes in, we need to have these discussions about Conte and what to do next. So we will have these discussions with Nick. Coco, I'd love to see him take up Venezia, barely above the relegation zone in Serie B. Danger of doing the dubious double. I have to remember that. That's a good hashtag. And yes, in hour number 2, Miles didn't get hurt, and he didn't have to run any post-game wind sprints either. Good Lord. Sean, you need your kickoff green tea. And we'll get into that, Coco, when it comes to Miles in hour number 2. Once again, Bart Keeler joining us at 10 o'clock. We've moved up his visit a day because of the 2 matches that have happened. So we'll get Bart's thoughts in the 10 o'clock half hour about everything USMNT. So file this away, Coco, at 9:13. I mean, Sean, that's your question. Why has the board let Levy continue? Is he the only one that they feel knows what's going on? Is he the only one? Is he? I mean, considering that his trust owns, 30% of, or it did initially anyway? I mean, there's a financial interest in there. So we'll see. We'll see what's going on. But, yeah, I have no longer answer for you as to why that's the case. Yes, they have a vision on the pitch. Burned, the only country where Conte and Mourinho can still work is Italy. Nobody else puts up with their defensive crap. Morning, Abby. But, yeah, I mean, Spurs Stadium, by all intents and purposes, is fantastic. Okay, so Burns says from Build, Nagelsmann will not take the Spurs job, wants to take time off, is his explanation. 1.83 year average for manager. So 0.8. So basically it's like a year and 9 months. Yeah, year and 9 months on the average. And Coco, Nagelsmann falling up from a Bayern firing to Real Madrid is certainly interesting. Or he can get paid for doing nothing. Yeah, 15 million pounds a year. It's a good gig if you can get it. Yeah, 10 million to go on vacation and ultimately falling up. Yeah, 22-month average. Coco, Nagelsmann gets accused of not working with his veterans in the locker room, Mueller and Neuer, to go to Real Madrid with veterans who won't put up with being replaced by younger players. But Coco says, but yes, I said from the start, Nagelsmann should just sit out a bit and take some of that free Bayern money. Once again, good life if you can get it. Being a former coach or manager is the best gig because then you can pundit and then you can double dip, basically. Burned. Nagelsmann also just got divorced. Okay, this is news. Nagelsmann also just got divorced. His children live with their mom in Munich, so it's another reason for him not to move abroad. Ironically, it's why Tuchel wanted to come back to Germany. His ex-wife and children live in Munich as well. Lots of material for the German tabloids. You ain't kidding. And so back and forth. Coco wanting to know if there's any truth to the reports Nagelsmann was dating a reporter at Bild. Okay. 100% confirmed. Bild pulled her off the Bayern beat. Okay. Oh, so, and in Burns' opinion, it hurt him a lot with the Bayern old guard, Hunis and Rummenigge. Extremely unprofessional. So, all right. All right. So doing the okay, and once again, this is from the 4-letter paper. So 4-letter paper is saying this. Let's see, reportedly leaving her role as a reporter at the end of the month because of a lack of trust in the Bayern dressing room. Last summer, he split up with his wife, Verena, after 15 years together. It emerged he was dating Lena Würzenberger. She was quickly stood down from covering Bayern due to her relationship. Now emerged through the Deutsche Presse Agentur. Würzenberger's leaving the paper with her boyfriend sacked by the German champions. A statement given to DPA by publisher Axel Springer Verlag said, quote, "We have complied with her request to leave. Wish her every success in the future." Despite Bild removing Würzenberger from covering Bayern last year, she's been pinpointed as a key reason why players could not trust Nagelsmann in the dressing room. Complete with picture, complete with second picture. Former Bayern and Liverpool star Marcus Babbel told Blick, quote, I know Nagelsmann's relationship with the Bild reporter was a huge topic in the dressing room. Didn't go down well at the time he was with her. His girlfriend was therefore a big problem for Bayern. Earlier this month, fear of secrets emanating from the dressing room escalated when tactical plans appeared in Bild. Once again, this is the 4-letter paper, and this is rare reading from the 4-letter paper, so take this information at your own peril. No evidence to suggest those leaks came from Würzenberger. Tactical plans appearing in Bild did little to ease the scrutiny around his relationship with the reporter. Some documents showing how the Bundesliga club changed their tactics were leaked and ended up on Bild, issued to players to highlight their tactical demands and a specific route of play. Nagelsmann was quoted, it bothers me a lot. The person who transmits this harms each of the players. He is not the objective. Würzenberger previously reported on Werder Bremen before moving to Munich, where she'd been covering the Bundesliga champs for the past 2 years. And, and on a skiing trip in the Austrian Zillertal, enjoying his international break when he learned of his imminent sacking Thursday night. Once again, like I said, that's from the 4-letter paper. So take that information at your own peril. Lots of pictures of her and Nagelsmann in the tabloids, skiing with him in Austria when he got fired. So there you go. Sean, so the short answer is I have no earthly idea why Daniel Levy is still in charge, other than the fact that there is a financial interest from his business that he is attached to that is tied to the ownership of the franchise. And I'm guessing he's the front man in all of this. So you got that to look forward to. And Law, once again, said that Daniel Levy's philosophy at Tottenham has led to failure. It must change. Levy's predilection for backing failing players over failing managers has resulted in an ever-growing barren spell for Spurs. Danny Rose gave the game away in the All or Nothing documentary that followed Spurs when he concluded a confrontation with Jose Mourinho by saying, quote, I'm going to see Daniel, end quote. Going to see Daniel. Let's see. For all the changes of managers and players, it seems the culture of Tottenham has broadly remained the same. For Danny Rose in 2020, Reid Richarlison in 2023. It was Richarlison who earlier in the month gave an interview to Brazilian media after elimination to AC Milan, claiming he was fit and he should have started. Presumably declared himself fit to start for the Southampton match as well, yet had to be replaced after just 3 minutes. Forward is still yet to score for Tottenham in the Premier League this season. Biggest club achievement to date is survival from relegation with Everton. One can only speculate, once again, Matt Law, on whether or not Richarlison is one of the group of Tottenham players who are supposedly upset by Conte's assessment of them. So, there you go with your all or nothing divulgement. So that's your opening kickoff. Opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. And once again, use the code SoccerDownHere15 for everything at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. And thanks to everybody who does. Once again, 15% off. They take 10% reinvested into the youth game. Once again, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. And thanks to them for everything they do for the game as well. Once again, follow them on all their social media so you can keep up with all of their ideas and discounts and things like that. kickoffcoffeeco.com. A lot of international stuff this morning. And once again, since it's Tuesday Thoughts, whatever's on your mind across the board, could be about Major League Soccer, could be about the men's national team. If you want to start to get your national thoughts in the queue, I've seen a couple on Miles. Once again, Bart Keeler, SoccerForUS POD. We're moving his we're moving his guest spot up to Tuesday, considering the match last night and the plot lines in and around that, where Ricardo Pepi scored. Beat 2, 3, 4. Start typing. Yep. And so, all right. So, Abby, thank you for that. Probably what we'll do is we will go ahead and put that in the ideas for the morning when it comes to Andrew Gutman. So, let's see. Let's see what we've got when it comes to any other information. So once again, like I said, all right. So we'll go ahead and give it this treatment because it's been maybe a day or so since I haven't had the chance to do it. Doug Robertson is reporting as of a handful of minutes ago. Andrew Gutman suffered an adductor injury week. And that did not look good for it did not look good for Atlanta United when he went down in the 40s. And we'll get into that, Abby. We'll get into Pepi and coaching. Yes, exactly, Bernd. Opening kickoff. How German top coaches and their affairs and breakups affect the international coaching carousel. That's absolutely correct. Like I said, opening kickoff traditionally is something that is just something that peeked into my brain. And, I've got a rundown of ideas every morning when it comes to doing the show, which reminds me, I forgot to mention what we're doing Thursday. Once again, Thursday, we are targeting our game of the week. And at 10 o'clock in the 10 o'clock hour Thursday morning, we're going to start something that should be fun. And we are enlisting the aid of our friends at the USL show. Looks like this time around, once a month, what I want to do is I want to bring in some of the guys from the USL show to talk about the USL Championship in League One. So it looks like 10 o'clock Thursday morning, it is going to be Keeler Hodges and John Morrissey, who does some really great work with USL Tactics. And he'll pull highlights and analysis and things like that. And the irony that Keeler is based in Birmingham and that John is formerly a part of the Tampa Bay system. Birmingham and Tampa Bay are playing this weekend. So we'll get their lowdown on that. But I don't think I have broken the news to them that I want to do this once a month. Like the last Thursday in the month throughout the season, I want to try to have some of the USL show guys on the show so we can talk USL Championship and US League and USL League One. So scheduled right now, 10 o'clock Thursday morning. It is Keeler Hodges from the Hammerdown Pod and John Morrissey. So USL show, that'll be Thursday at 10 Eastern time. So that'll be fun to break down everything going on in USL Championship, USL League One, and that'll be fun on Thursday. Dylan Butler slated still to join us on Wednesday, and 9 o'clock is the standard sprint that it is with opening kickoff. Our friends at Beyond Goals, I think it's going to be Michael Parkhurst this week. And then the weekend whip around, patent pending trademark coming, hopefully probably sooner rather than later at 10 o'clock, where we go through everything in Major League Soccer. So once again, very, very busy week. NWSL is now underway. We're going to try to track down some folks with that and everything else going on internationally with that. Yes, well, actually, it's not on the written calendar, Abby. It is on the ring binder. So you see, we got the ring binder here since Monday's show is done. I still have some things to do, but most of the Monday stuff on the list is crossed off. So it's on the 3-ring binder. So there we go. So the 3-ring binder has all of the guests and things. But now it'll be fun on Thursday. And like I said, Bart Keeler joining us in about 20 minutes. And Dylan Butler joining us tomorrow. The guys from the USL show joining us 10 o'clock Thursday to go through USL Championship in the League One, and then the sprint that is the Friday show. No, absolutely. Gutman status week to week with an adductor strain, according to Doug Robertson at the AJC. So adductor injury. Adductor injury, according to Doug, listed as week to week. Aren't we all? So, I mean, it's just something that's got to be monitored, and you want him to be 100% before he's back in the lineup. So that probably means Caleb Wiley will be getting more work instead of at left wing. He'll drop back to left back. And, I mean, we've seen what Caleb has done at left back. I mean, Aiden might be a part of things, but Aiden right now is a part of Atlanta United too, but we'll see. But once again, with everyone coming back from international break, it'll be back to normal with what you see on the left-hand side, Derek Etienne starting probably. Caleb drifting to left back, and then if Derek can't go, then if Derek can't go 90, then you get your substitution. Caleb probably moves up, and whoever they bring in at the back, Luis Abram or something like that, you figure out what the back is going to look like. Left back might be the problem here in trying to figure out what your depth is. But so we'll see what it looks like. But this probably means that Caleb starts at left back against Red Bulls. Etienne probably starts, or some combination therein. So that's what we're looking at. Like I said, this is Tuesday, and we're talking about something that's happening Saturday night. So there's a lot of time between now and then, but we'll find out with practice going on today, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and Jason may have updates and things like that when he comes and visits us during weekend whip around on Friday. But yeah, the early news, adductor injury for Andrew Gutman listed as week to week. So we'll see. And Abby, you're not alone in hating Red Bull. So that's where we are with Andrew Gutman. We'll keep an eye on that. Did you guys see? And there's plenty of stuff that's on my list to talk about. Stuff in the country that hosted the World Championship over Thanksgiving and Christmas. Security guards are still being paid as little as basically 35 cents an hour. And now there's a criminal case that's opened up over the death of a migrant worker. One of the things that I wanted to get into with Jarrett has to do with Old Firm. And it has a headbutt that got involved with Old Firm and on the women's side. The Scottish Football Association is set to investigate an incident. And so once again, if Jared hops in, I will revisit this. Scottish Football Association is set to investigate after Rangers assistant manager Craig McPherson appeared to butt the Celtic manager Fran Alonso at the end of Monday's Scottish Women's Premier League match. Footage captured by Sky. McPherson seemed to aim a butt at the back of Alonso's head as the players were shaking hands after the end of the match. The SFA is awaiting the referee's report. Will look into the incident via the compliance officer. Rangers appeared to be on the verge of securing victory until an equalizer in the 9th minute of injury time ensured that there would be a shared results. Footage was shown. Alonso said, "You can see there, somebody pushed me from behind. I never talked to Coach McPherson the whole game. It's disappointing to concede a goal in the last minute. I totally get it. I was called a little rat. I don't know why." Rangers head coach Malky Thompson said, "Without me seeing it at all, I don't know how I can comment on it. If that's the case, there'll be an investigation. We'll look at it." Draw ensures Celtic and Rangers remain second and third with Glasgow City 8 points in front. So we have a headbutt in Old Firm, but it's in Old Firm Feminile. Old Firm Feminile. So there you go. So we'll take a peek at that. Also, let's see. So we've got the security guard still being paid less than 35 cents an hour. Criminal cases opened up over the death of a worker in the country. Let's see. What other stuff did I have on my list? Oh, yes. I feel like Stefan when I do that. Did you guys see the video out of Spain? Peru is set to have a friendly with Morocco later today. The players from Peru And this looks like it's outside the team hotel, and it's on Sports Center in Espanol, and you have other folks who have reported on this. Before the friendly against Morocco, the players from Peru had a run-in with Spanish police. They were mistaken for fans inside the hotel. Alex Valera, Pedro Gallese, and Yoshi Yotun were roughed up by the police. I'll share the link to the video. I'll share the link to the video here. Headbutt in the women's old firm. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, headbutt. And it was coaches. It wasn't even players. It was coaches headbutting a coach. Basically, it was a headbutt rabbit punch. It was a headbutt from behind to the back of the head. The link I just shared is the dust-up between the Spanish national police and the Peruvian national team at the hotel. Statement from Orlando City. Orlando City SC is aware of the situation involving goalkeeper Pedro Gallese and other members of the Peru national team while in Spain. The club has contacted Gallese and his representatives and confirmed that he is safe and unharmed. So it was Gallese, Jose Carvalho, Yoshi Yotun, Alex Valera. And they were getting into it with the Spanish national police. They wanted to thank the Peruvian fans that came to the hotel to support the national team. Apparently, and like I said, this is all over the place. It looked like the Spanish police started to have an issue with Yoshi Yotun. Then Gallese jumps in, and like I said, the video is out there. So that's what you're looking at right now. So interesting stuff going on in Morocco, and by all indications, it looks like Gallese, according to Luis Miguel Echegaray, and this came on when the show started this morning. Peru faced Morocco in Madrid later. Gallese was up all night due to this. We'll see how well they do, as it was a very intense night. Follow Diego Montalvan on Twitter. And he's worked with Telemundo, ESPN Deportes, and ESPN FC in the past. Montalvan's understanding is that Spanish police started something with Yoshi Yotun. Gallese and Valera defended Yotun, and that's when all of this stuff started. Gallese, it's like the players, and I'm piecing this together. Gallese, Carvalho, Yotun, and Valera all went to the police station to give their statements. And as of 12 hours ago, actually as of 10 hours ago, Gallese, and this is once again from Diego Montalvan, Gallese is the only player left at the station. This was a little before 10 o'clock our time last night, so that's like 3 o'clock in the morning in Spain. Gallese is the only player left at the station, according to the consulate. An officer said Gallese hit him. Gallese had stated before, quote, "We wanted to say hi to our people, and they started to throw punches," end quote. And then close to 5 a.m. in Madrid, Gallese finally had been let go, according to Gustavo Peralta Coelho. And so you have that going on. Left the police station without being charged, but he was there until 5 o'clock in the morning local time. And you have all of this with a friendly coming up later tonight. So we'll keep an eye on who starts. We'll keep an eye on who starts, and we'll see what happens there with Peru and Morocco playing in Spain. And you had that in front of the team on the steps of the team hotel last night. So that was another interesting moment that we saw last night. And keep an eye on that one going forward. Let's see. Chelsea coach Anthony Barry has agreed to stay away from training during negotiations with Bayern Munich. Once again, remember, Thomas Tuchel publicly said that he wanted Anthony Barry to be a part of his staff. Didn't go through like regular backdoor channels and sit there and have his people talk to people at Chelsea and, hey, we want to have Anthony Barry join Thomas Tuchel at Bayern. Tuchel says it publicly. I want Anthony Barry. That didn't go well with Chelsea. It's like, yo, dog. This is the actual transcript. Yo, dog. Could you kind of call us first and let us know? Didn't quite happen that way. So now Barry has agreed to stay away from training during negotiations with Bayern Munich. He's going to just hang out. Bayern have now made a compensation offer to take Barry, who wants to join the staff in Germany, but it is understood to fall well short of Chelsea's valuation. Telegraph revealed Chelsea were braced for a battle over Barry after Tuchel's appointment at Bayern, and that the former midfielder interested in working with him expressed a wish to join Tuchel. Bundesliga giants have not offered a sufficient compensation package. Both parties still hope that a compensation package can still be released or reached, and Barry will not return to work at Chelsea as Graham Potter prepares for the remainder of the Premier League season. He won't be at the training ground, nor will he be on the bench while this is unresolved. Barry had been given permission to take up a dual role with Portugal, as he's been with the Portuguese national team for their victories over Liechtenstein and Luxembourg, before returning to England. And so Tuchel says, my coaching staff wasn't prepared either, so big thank you to their families for their flexibility. And so then he says publicly, Arno Michels and Zolt Löw have been working with me for over 10 years. They'll be there. We're hoping to add Anthony Barry. That's how he lays it out there. We're hoping to add Anthony Barry. So Mateo Kovacic only's got a year left on his deal. Already alerted Manchester City. Bayern could be in the race to sign Kovacic. But yeah, come on. When you're interested in a dude, don't sit there and I know what you want to do. I know why you do it. Because you want to sit there, you want to make the guy feel good that you're trying to recruit, and at the same time, what you're trying to do is kind of force a move. But sometimes folks don't want to sit there and have a move. They're like, nah, we're good. He's good. He's not going anyplace. We're absolutely fine. But what you want to do, you want to go through channels, man. You want to go through channels. Hey, Barry must be the ish at 36. He really must have impressed Thomas Tuchel. I mean, think about your favorite coaches. Think about your favorite coaches in your favorite sports. And how many times do they sit there and say publicly, well, I'd like to have player X, or I'd like to have this coach join me on the staff. You don't do that publicly. You have your people talk to his people or their people if the guy's employed. Barry might be the ish. Who knows? But what you want to do is you want to sit there and you want to go, you want to have like your agent pick up the phone. We'd like to speak to Graham Potter, please. You do it that way. Instead of, we'd like to have Barry. Who's at Chelsea. What you did, Thomas Tuchel, what you did is you drove up the price when you mentioned him publicly. That's what you have done in effect. I mean, think about it. How many times have we seen, hey, I like this. Somebody sits there, whatever it is. I mean, it could be food. It could be, it could be someone that you want to have work for you, what you've done, I mean, a trade value. Think about things on trade deadline days in our favorite sports. The demand and the scarcity of the demand of the particular element that you're talking about here, in this case, we're talking about an assistant coach. I mean, if Thomas Tuchel had kept his mouth shut, and said, just picked up the phone. Yeah, I'd like to speak to Graham Potter, please. I mean, seriously, it's think of it maybe like, yeah, really. Yeah, Michael's not wrong. Maybe for once Chelsea comes out on top of a transfer. But think about it. How many times have general managers during seasons when you have trade deadlines and things like that said that, hey, I really want this player? No, you want a player. You want a coach. You want somebody to help you out on the coaching line. You want a player to help you with your lineup. If you're a coach or a GM, you sit there and say, yeah, we're looking for a player that can help us do A, B, C, D, or E. You don't give specific names. You don't give names out loud, bruh, because you've driven up the price for what you want. You have basically opened your mouth and caused Bayern to sit there and go, expletive deleted, man. You're going to cost us more money to bring this dude in. Now Chelsea can sit there and say, well, we really like Barry. We like him. We want him to stay here. What's it worth to you? That's what you're doing here. Thomas Tuchel has to learn the art of negotiation. You can't steamroll your way through stuff because it costs you more money, fam. The before and the after here that we're talking about, I mean, it could be, you're probably talking millions of dollars now. Or, and I admit that I'm probably kind of blowing it up a little bit, but still, what you could have gotten Anthony Barry for if you'd kept your mouth shut and just picked up the phone, which I imagine you have, Thomas Tuchel. And Alex, you're probably right. This is also dating down here. If Thomas Tuchel had just picked up the phone and called Chelsea, or had Bayern called Chelsea, not talk about it publicly, not open your pie hole about it, just call him up. Yeah, we'd like, I like Anthony Barry a lot. I'd like for him to be a part of my staff. Okay, well, what's it worth to you? We'll come up with something. What you've done is basically piss off Chelsea publicly. They will make it as difficult for Thomas Tuchel as possible to get Anthony Barry as a coach to be a part of that staff. If Thomas Tuchel kept his mouth shut, just picked up the phone and said nothing about it publicly, this would have been a lot easier. Dealing with Chelsea in the future would have been a lot easier. Yeah, I know that there's a checkered past there, but if there are players that you want to deal with from Chelsea and you want to try to negotiate something with Chelsea, loan, purchase earlier than normal, the runway could have been so much easier to navigate. But instead, what you do is you open your mouth and you make it ugly for the price tag. Ugh. Quoting the famous Disney character Gus, Oyich. Oyich, Gus. Unbelievable. Guess what? It's hour number 2. Means that this guy's showing up. And as our resident Arsenal fan here on the show, Bart Keeler is watching all of Rome burn around him in the Premier League and saying, that's cool, man.
It's definitely nice to see other teams having their own issues for a change.
As the man's in the penthouse and he's sitting there going, "Yeah, we're cool right now,"
Yeah.
and you're looking at, you're looking at Chelsea being Chelsea and costing themselves God knows how much more in wanting Anthony Barry to come and join Thomas Tuchel's staff, and I could just see Todd Bowley sitting there going right now, okay, yeah, yeah, you want Anthony Barry? What's it worth to you? Oh, the price just went up. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Did you mention a desire for him publicly? Sorry, price tag just went up. I mean, seriously, have you ever been in a situation where you sit there and it's like, if someone had just picked up the phone and had gone, Bart, I really like, I really like I like the car that you drive. I like the bike that you have there, something like that. And then you open your mouth to all your friends. Yeah, I'm trying to get Bart's car from Bart. How much is it? How much more is it worth to you now? It's like, oh, I like Bart's car too. I think I'll bid for Bart's car, and then you have multiple folks chasing after this kind of stuff. I mean, really, Thomas Tuchel, keep your mouth shut, and everything would have been so much easier. But Bart, I imagine is sipping from his Arsenal mug this morning, or maybe his Stars and Stripes mug, and discussing anything and everything. Oh, how much of the match did you watch last night? By the way, as I hit the brakes and go into the guardrail, start talking about the men's national team. Did you watch?
I mean, I watched all of it. Watched it from Fado Midtown with the
There you
rest of my American Outlaw fellow friends, and we really we were happy at the end, and it was a successful window. Let's just put it that way.
Yes, a successful window. No one got injured, especially for Atlanta.
I mean, honestly, that was the main thing is you didn't want to send a guy back with a possible injury or worse,
Mm-hmm.
and we survived that, especially considering, last night the official felt that, fouls were a relative concept, not really, applicable in life.
It is a nebulous thing. You can kind of
Yeah.
the definition kind of wavers from point A to point B.
It's yeah, it was definitely one of those CONCACAF matches but it didn't feel like it needed to be, which was probably the part that really
Not in
uh
not in this kind of a window. You don't need that. You don't. It's like you don't need. You just don't, man. You don't. You don't. You don't.
it
Uh,
was yeah, it was just we'll get it out of the way first because the refereeing was very I can't say poor, because it was consistently dismissive. Let's just put
yeah.
it that way.
Yeah.
He did not feel like he really wanted to be a part of the match until somehow the second half, the linesman on the near side decided to call a lot of fouls on us for who knows what reason. It was weird. It did not feel like it met the standard that the official in the center was holding the match, and it was just very inconsistent from the AR to the center. The center was consistently not trying to call anything. That concerned me because we were lucky no one got hurt, but it could have been. It could have been.
When we look at and what I traditionally like to do with you after matches is we go over the numbers. The folks at Soccer America, they have their grades, and it's Arla Moore Bloom's turn to come up with grades this time. In a window where you're just trying to get out alive and make sure that you get to the semis in Nations League, do you even care about numbers more than anything else? Do numbers matter to you after these two matches and these kinds of performances, or are you looking at
I mean,
player parachuting in and making sure that everything gets done regardless?
here's the thing. In general, yeah, I would like to have these mean a little bit more, but the reality is that this is still an interim head coach.
Mm-hmm.
The tactics are definitely different from what Berhalter put in place. I think they're less rigid, but I think they're less rigid because Anthony Hudson knows that his job is to just kind of steer the ship in the right direction and let the sailors do their job.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm not worried about many things other than the fact that we won both of these games. And I think, when you look at this entirety, you played 2, maybe 3 good halves of soccer out of the 4. The first
Mhm.
half last night was not very good. Um, but the second half was a noticeable improvement, and, I think that we were unlucky to not have won that game by more.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, the winner overall, it was successful. You won both games. There's no reason to complain about that. Um, it just is hard to take any real massive long-term takeaways when you're still looking at an interim head coach.
Right. And obviously we can look at some things last night and the starting lineup. Let's go from there and we'll work forward. Starting lineup, it was Turner and net, Dest, Miles, Tim Ream, Anthony Robinson at the back. Your midfield, McKinney, Reyna Musa. Up top, Zendejas, DK, and Pulisic. And I know that there's some folks on the bench that we'll talk about in a bit. But Alex Zendejas, for fans of the USMNT, right there for you, brother. Alex Zendejas dressed in USA colors.
Yeah, that honestly was probably the best part of this window as a whole. Is you got Zendejas, fully engaged now in the U.S. men's national team. He is ours. Um, you also had guys like Taylor Booth play a significant amount of minutes for what he had played. You know, those are the things that do matter from this window, right? Is getting those types of guys into the team and getting them to know the other guys that are in the system. That is fantastic, and Zendejas looked, I think, overall pretty darn good. I think we saw what he can do, some of his shortcomings, but overall, I thought he was very fun to watch over the 2 games.
Then Burns says you mentioned the officiating, and there are some officiating things that I wrote down that when we put your officiating cap on later on in the segment, I wanted to ask you about from an official's perspective. Abby says you need to have grades for the refs,
Yeah.
and you wonder. I mean, do you? I know that there are some processes in some leagues where there is a review process. Is there review processes when it comes to CONCACAFiness and officials in hemispheric competitions? I mean, did we see the same kinds of things? Do you know of that?
I don't know if I can answer that question assuredly. I do know that it will be different. Obviously, when you are at a World Cup,
Yeah.
or a tournament directly, yes, you are getting evaluated. I don't know what the level of feedback necessarily is, but I
Right.
know there are evaluations because those evaluations are used to then choose referees for later stages of the tournament. Obviously, Nations League is technically a tournament, so I'm sure that there are evaluations, but what feedback are you getting? I don't know if I can give a for sure answer, but I know there are evaluations that they can choose the best referees for the finals that'll come up in June. And obviously, we know CONCACAF's standard for choosing a referee is who's going to cause the most drama in a final. Um, and that is what they're looking for.
um, Up top, Daryl DK, and I don't know how. I'm going to go ahead and phrase it this way. I think that Daryl DK is an acquired taste. I think that for Daryl DK to be successful as that, stereotypic power forward, he needs folks around him that complement him up top. And you can't just have that power forward who, I think in this day and age, just posts up, and you have to rely on that individual to do his thing. I think if you have those who can complement that power forward, that 6'3", 6'4", 275-pound guy in the middle, and I'm being somewhat facetious with the height and weight, but that power forward that's up there, that aircraft carrier, you need folks that can complement DK or folks like that when you're looking at forwards. And I think that you've got to surround Daryl DK with the right pieces for him to be successful. You can't just rely on Daryl DK to be Daryl DK solo and expect to have results.
Yeah, but John, that's the problem. We're if he can't do it solo, then I'm sorry, this is going to sound really harsh, but then what's the point? Because you're telling me that he can't somehow figure out a way to operate with Six and Tejas, Reyna, McKinney, and Musa behind him. I don't have time for that. I'm sorry, especially when Ricardo Pepi scored in both games.
You're reading my notes. That was my
so. I think that's the biggest takeaway I had, and this has been the problem with DK in every single U.S. men's national team appearance. He doesn't look like he fits the rest of the team. That doesn't mean he's not a good soccer player or not a good forward. Yes, we could probably figure out a way to adapt a little bit to him, but the problem is the adaptation was send the ball long, cross it into the box, and that really wasn't working for us either. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. Like, DK has never been high on my personal depth chart of striker. He's nowhere near the top 2 right now. And then you've got the news that, Twellman has reported that Balogun will choose the U.S. So now you're not even in the top 3 or even close to that. So I can't spend my time and energy on a guy who's not even in your top 3 or 4 strikers. Sorry.
No, I mean, I'm right there with you. I do want to get into the Balogun thing in a little bit, but Ricardo Pepi comes on, then basically 2 minutes in, scores with his second touch.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of folks are sitting there, and it's like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme that we see posted from the movie that he did with Brad Pitt, where they're the Hollywood guys, and it's the Sharon Tate tie-in from where you see the cigarette and the beer, and he's pointing at the screen, and you see him going, that meme, Once again, Ricardo Pepi is giving folks fuel for the past world competition in the country that shall not be named unless I blurted out of my mouth unintentionally, for that world championship and his absence there. How much credence do we give, once again, Ricardo Pepi coming in a match like this, in a window that is meant to just kind of, keep everybody sharp and figure out what you're doing under a substitute teacher? How much credence are we giving this with Ricardo Pepi scoring yet again, or are you adding context to the situation? Yeah, it was great, but understand what you're dealing with here. Where were you on Pepi scoring last night and his greater context?
Well, I mean, again, I think that it's something that you have to say the competition for your striker position has been ongoing for the past 2-3 years. And despite, Pepi having a downturn in form in 2022 as a whole, well, at least most of 2022. For since 2021, he's been probably the most reliable U.S. striker when it comes to scoring. That doesn't mean he scored a whole lot, but he's at least putting the ball in the back of the net for this team at a clip that is much higher than a guy like Jesus Ferreira, who's only played one good game and has feasted on playing bad teams.
Right.
And even then, he hasn't looked fully convincing. So, no, I mean, I think Pepi did himself a great service, that he probably is at least in your number 1 or 2, right? Like, I don't think we have a full-on starting 9, but he is at least in the, I'm calling up 2 strikers. He's one of the 2. I still think Josh Sargent is the other one if he's healthy. That's where we're at. We're not officially, we can't officially say Balogun, but I think Pepi has made every case to be a one of the 2 strikers you would call in for a tournament on a 23-man roster.
Okay. Burned is in, and he says Balogun, Pepi, and he would say Vasquez over Sargent currently. And I'm guessing that Burned is looking at form that we're seeing where BV is shushing folks at Geodis after scoring, and continues his hot run. So he's got Balogun, Pepe, and Vasquez over Sargent.
Let me look up Vasquez's stats real quick, because I feel like he hasn't been as hot as I thought he would be this MLS season, but I guess he's doing okay. I don't know. I'm not fully on the Vasquez train. I think that is something that a lot of people from Atlanta are holding on to. Obviously, I think that we should have kept him here if we could have. Obviously, there are reasons why we didn't.
Blame the expansion rules and the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely do. I mean, that's the reason why we lost a couple of guys. I still think that Sargent is a better overall soccer player than Brandon Vasquez, and that's why I would lean to keep him. But that's me.
Oh, and I'm sure that you're not alone in that assessment. The other topic is the obvious.
He's got 1 goal and 1 assist this season, so he's definitely cooled off a little bit.
Yeah. The other topic, obviously, I know that folks wanted to get into is Miles. And what we saw from Miles in this window, other than not getting injured and not doing post-game sprints for being active, you had a healthy scratch, and then you had him active last night. What were other than thank God he didn't get hurt? When you look at Miles, what else was going on?
So there's this. I'm going to push a narrative because apparently there's been a memo sent out to a lot of the guys on USMNT Twitter to say, oh, well, Miles isn't good because he only plays in MLS. And I'm just going to push back and say Miles is a damn good soccer player and a fantastic defender. And anytime you doubt Miles Robinson, you look foolish. So I would suggest you just don't doubt Miles Robinson. I fully understand that. No, I do not rate him as highly as a soccer player as Chris Richards.
Mm-hmm.
But Miles does a lot of things better than Chris Richards. Miles does a lot of things better than Cameron Carter-Vickers, and he does a lot of things better than Tim Ream, namely, run. But it's something that people have been, oh, I don't know if he's even close to the start. He was our starter for the World Cup until he got injured last April. So why all of a sudden did he fall so far when, I'm sorry, Chris Richards hasn't exactly one who also got injured and didn't, feature at the World Cup. So it's not like he had a World Cup tournament to somehow solidify a spot. He was hurt. He hasn't really been able to find his way at Crystal Palace. Cameron Carter-Vickers, I think, is the one who has had the most improvement. Obviously, he's playing for a very good team, and playing for a very good team in a league that is not very good. Yeah. But he's playing a lot in a fashion of soccer that is not, typical Scottish football. Sorry, Jarrett. And Tim Ream is obviously still at a very high level, but the reality is I don't think he's making the 2026 World Cup team. But if your only critique of Miles is, oh, well, they have 2 critiques. One, oh, he's not as great on the ball, which is bullcrap. That's okay. Sorry, he's not, Chiellini on the ball, but he's still very good on the ball. And your other critique is, oh, well, he hasn't done it outside of MLS. It's not like Miles didn't want to go to Europe. I mean, they seem to forget that the man had 9 to 10 months off because he tore his Achilles, and that had he not done that, the likelihood that he is in Atlanta right now is probably 2%. If he goes to the World Cup, has a good World Cup, Atlanta's selling him for $10 million in January, and we're looking at probably not selling George Campbell to Montreal, and Campbell and Parada is probably your starting center back pairing for Atlanta, which is a little scary. But yeah, I just think that any of this doubting of Miles Robinson, of what his abilities are, where his status is on this USMNT depth chart, is foolish, because he's a very good defender, and he's a guy who. Look, he played perfectly last night next to Sergiño Dest, who forgets he's a defender most of the time. So you need to have that type of guy on the right side to cover for a Sergiño Dest type player who, to be fair, I don't need him defending all the time. He is probably one of our best attacking options. So it's like, I don't understand why there's this pause on Miles. He's good. It's okay to admit that an MLS player is good. Miles Robinson is very good at soccer.
We can't have that in an international narrative, Bart. We can't have MLS players are good. Joining us, by the way, here for this particular segment is our advocate here at SDH, Nick Aliffi. So, Nick, we're discussing the USMNT. We are discussing Miles, and I know that once Bart leaves us in about 10 minutes, I know that you're going to want to discuss things as well. But the advocate for Bartimus Prime, what's on your mind this morning?
Whoever is slandering the name of one Mr. Miles Robinson, I'm going to need them to seek immediate treatment for whatever kind of head trauma they've received. We have been trapped for a long time. And I think the benefit of my age is that I was around whenever video games, were very rudimentary and very hyper pixelated and not intuitive.
Odyssey 3 right here, and Mattel, and in television from Mattel.
Yeah, well, see, that is the period in which we were also drawing cows on cave walls. But I mean, we're kind of having to advance a little further. But I think nowadays with we have so many people who they play Football Manager, or they play FIFA or whatever derivative of that, and they believe that these players are machines. That
yes,
player X is back from injury and they're 100%. And they should be 100% ready to go and slot right into the lineup. And because it's my hands on the joystick, the player's going to play perfectly, ping every pass, chemistry's no problem. I'm sorry, in the real world, that's not how things work. You have to mentally come back from an injury as well as physically.
Yes.
And it takes time to reintegrate with any team that you get put in with, much less a part-time team. And that's what Miles is working with when he plays for the U.S. men's national team. He's having to come back in and, as a defender especially, you're used to a certain communication style. You're used to a certain cadence, meaning how frequently you're going to be hearing from the people around you. You're going to be, whether you're a leader or not, who's going to be issuing commands, take the runner, take the ball, occupy this space, drop back, push forward. The frequency of long passes, and where you get used to, okay, he can put the ball right here. So I know I can push forward. If I'm a midfielder, I know I can push forward a little further because I have a stud behind me who's ready to go. If you don't have that stud behind you, okay, I need to sort of hang back a little bit because that back line can be a bit shaky. There's so many permutations that work in that people forget this because they're so conditioned via video games or, this artificial reality that, they say, oh, well, guy's a bum, he needs to be on the bench or he's not that good. He couldn't say, I'm sorry, Miles Robinson can play in Europe. He can. When, Miles Robinson, who was supposed to start for the national team in this most recent World Cup, could have absolutely gone to Europe. Absolutely. But when that Achilles decided to detonate on him, it set everything back, and that's a reality. Mentally, the man can play in Europe. Physically, we need to see that we need to see how that progression works. I still think he can. We can have a debate on which league he could go to, but not to say he's not at the very upper crust of defenders within the U.S. talent pool is asinine. And that's somebody who's been listening to way too much, I'm not even going to mention their names, but certain English-based podcasts with the too high a frequency. So with that, I don't know what else to say other than I need you to go outside and touch grass if you think this man's not in the upper crust of the U.S. talent pool.
Well, I mean, we've seen, Bart, that Miles worked really well with Walker Zimmerman, and Abby makes that point. I mean, that to me seemed like one of your more solid center back pairings was Miles and Walker. And Abby said last night that there was some one-on-ones where, once again, Miles showed who Miles was in this regard. So, I mean, for me, my center back pairing is Miles and Walker from what I've seen. But once again,
I disagree. Tim Ream.
Sorry.
Tim Ream is playing at a phenomenal level right now.
Well, can he continue to do? I'm also thinking the next 3 years where Tim Ream would end up being 40 years old, if I'm not mistaken. Because isn't Tim Ream like
He'll be 39, I think, by the next World Cup.
Okay,
so
so
I'm not counting on Tim Ream for the future. I want that, but right now I think Tim and Miles are your best.
Oh, I know. From what we've seen from Tim Ream, I agree.
But I definitely think though if Chris Richards can stay healthy, I think Miles and Chris could be a very good pairing. Which we saw a little bit during World Cup qualifying. They were pretty darn good. But yeah, I mean during World Cup qualifying, which right now is literally fully a year ago, Miles and Walker were your best pairing. They were the ones who were not giving up goals. Every other pairing ended up giving up a goal. Miles and Walker didn't. So,
and the chime in what Burn is, and Burn always brings fantastic points to the table. He says the real issue why Miles is not in Europe is that he's a late bloomer and played in college, i.e. he's older. Which is why he doesn't fit in with the typical scouting algorithms of the European development clubs. But he will now go on a free, which is fine, just a different path. And that's something that to people who've been watching the U.S. men's national team for a very long time, that was the great debate, which was, can these kids who come out of like the University of Virginia, or Wake Forest, compete with people who've, with 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds who've been playing in Ligue 1 or, La Liga. That wasn't happening in Serie A, so we're not going to pretend like that's even a legitimate argument. But, but it's a valid conversation that's been had throughout the history of U.S. soccer, which is the collegiate system is one path. In the old days, it was the path to the pros. Now, obviously, there's 3 or 4 different ways you can get there. But for the path to Europe, Miles is going to be a little bit older. But there's going to be a European team that's going to be like, yeah, you can just bring him right in. And I think it would be, if you're a U.S. men's national team fan, just be glad he's going to go. And I think he's very different than an Aniwu situation where he was signed by Milan simply because, hey, look, he's going to move some shirts for us and he's going to put a few extra butts in seats on this U.S. tour. This is completely different. So I wouldn't even I want to go ahead and get in front of that before anybody else decides to come jumping in and say that it would just be like a fan interest signing. But yeah, he's good. He doesn't quite fit the mold, but I think he's probably in a better position to make that move now. And I have zero doubts of his ability to compete because the guy's a unit and can absolutely put the ball downfield. So that yeah, there's plenty of Bundesliga teams. There's a couple of Serie A teams you could use.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's several. I mean, I don't know if he is. I would be cautious of him to sign with a Premier League club, to be quite honest. But
right.
But I think there's a ton of Bundesliga teams who could benefit by signing Miles. I think literally all of Ligue 1, outside of maybe PSG, and even then they might need some defensive help, could benefit from signing Miles. I mean, but you're also talking about possibly, if he goes to the Eredivisie, right? And, maybe, he has a friend over at some club in the Netherlands at this point in time who may or may not have been a part of identifying and bringing him into a program just recently. That could be a spot where he could go and shine. I mean, if I were him, I'd get on my Duolingo and start learning German and French. But it would be, there are plenty of teams in Europe who would benefit from signing Miles Robinson. There's plenty of players in the U.S. who, despite what people think, could go to Europe and perform well. It's about finding that level at which they could perform. And that's the thing is Miles can perform at a very high level in Europe.
No doubt.
He is performing still at a very high level in MLS.
Yeah.
And he has time and time again proven that he can grow and develop and evolve as a player. And he's still doing that, despite the fact that he was out for, 9 months, 10 months with an Achilles injury. And, that to me is kind of the most amazing thing. And he's come back just as fit and as fast and as quick as he was before.
Which shows his dedication to training, right? I mean, that shows, yeah. If anything, if I'm a manager and I'm looking at how quickly he's come back from that Achilles injury, that is an absolute positive in my book because that's somebody who's putting in the damn work to make the comeback from that, not just physically but mentally as well. And I agree with you completely. I would not want him to go to the EPL or anywhere in England. I'm sorry. Some of the stodgy mentality of what they need from players. Prestige, great, prestige, awesome, but the clubs that would be willing to sign Miles Robinson and play him with regularity are also the clubs that are more likely to end up with like Sam Allardyce as a manager before too terribly long, and I don't want that for him. I think Ligue 1 would be great for him. I think Eredivisie is a fantastic shout. People forget, man, Tata did not play Miles a lot. FDB was like, brother, you can play. And if Frank de Boer, say whatever you want about the man. Have fun. The man knows what he's talking about when it comes to damn defenders. And the exponential growth that Miles achieved under Frank de Boer tells me he could absolutely go to Eredivisie, one of the top teams, go right in and have no trouble at all. And I think that if I'm Miles' agent, I'm looking in that general direction. And maybe even put in a call to Frank and be like, hey, what do you think about me going to Eredivisie? Do you think this is a good spot? And let Frank be a sounding board for that. And if anybody would understand what it would take to thrive in that situation, I think it would certainly be Frank de Boer.
All right, Bart, I know that we're in added time, extra time. How much time do you have left?
I have a little bit. I'm kind of doing some work here too, so
Okay, so the man's multitasking. We like this. Tyler Adams has had a hamstring surgery this morning. No word on how long he is going to be out. Obviously, that's not the best news when it comes to Leeds and the Premier League. But the other topic that I wanted to get into you with, and Wise Man, feel free to chime in as well, was after the match last night, Hugo Perez was asked about his interest in the men's national team. And here's what Hugo said. Once again, played for the U.S., 84 Olympics, 94 World Cup, knows a lot of the current group, U14, U15 coach. His first U14 camp in May of 2012 included Pulisic, McKennie, De La Torre, and Haji Wright. Here's what he said. He was asked about it. If I say yes or no, they'll kill me in my country. And then he starts to laugh. I know all these players. I don't know what percentage that started with us in the national team. I know they have an interim coach right now. I hope for the sake of our football here in America, let's face it. The U.S. wants to win the World Cup, okay? And it's a big opportunity. They're not going to qualify for the World Cup. They're already in. I'm sure they're going to make the right decision who they're going to bring in or leave him, meaning Anthony Hudson as the coach. I mean, basically, the coaches are important, don't get me wrong, but the players that they have right now, you're talking about a generation for the next 15 years. I think they took one team and played Grenada, then they got some other players to play against us. Tells you the depth they have, end quote. So Hugo Perez was asked if he would move from El Salvador to be head coach, Bart, of the men's national team. Where are your leanings when it comes to the head coach?
Well, I mean, I think Hugo Perez would be a great fit for what we want to do. In terms of just, I think he is a guy who gets more out of the team than should. I think El Salvador has proven to punch way above their weight. They have always given us a tough match. We've played them now 4 times with Hugo Perez in 4 competitive matches, and we've drawn them in El Salvador and only beaten them at home 1-0 both times. So it's very clear that he has found a way to put up a very tough team to beat. I understand they did not necessarily do well in qualifying, but they were a thorn in everyone's side during qualifying. I think that a lot of fans would want a bigger name, but I think a lot of USMNT fans would be fine with Hugo Perez because I think they see him as a guy who has a more worldly approach to the game than just a guy who was part of the U.S. men's national team, which is, I think, where the frustration for a lot of people comes, is someone who is only really good because they played for the U.S. men's national team and had no real experience outside of that. Hugo clearly has that. It would definitely be a step up to go from El Salvador, a team that has some good talent, but is overall just, a bunch of guys who play hard and he's put together a great system for them to play in. Moving to the U.S. men's national team when the expectations are not just, oh my gosh, we gave them a good game. It's, you need to be winning trophies at the continental level and competing. Berhalter, I know he's not here, but I think when he said, the semifinal for 2026 was the goal. I mean, that's what the expectation is, I think, is to at least get past the quarters.
Yeah.
Or get to the quarters, so is he ready for that challenge? I don't know. I still think he's a very good coach. And I think if we're not talking to him, we're doing something wrong.
Wise man, Michele Giannone talked to Ricardo Pepi, and he asked for a difference between Anthony Hudson and Greg Berhalter. Here's what he said. In the attacking third, Anthony has told us that we have more freedom. If you feel and have the capacity to improvise something, he's going to let you do it, end quote. I mean, this is a markedly different individual than the one we saw with the Colorado Rapids. I mean, you're hoping that that Anthony Hudson has learned things along the way, but it appears that Anthony Hudson is letting the players sit there and have some imagination that allegedly, if you ask Ricardo Pepi, Greg Berhalter did not allow them to have.
Well, each manager is going to want to have different levels of control on different phases of the game. Pep Guardiola is hyper controlling of on the defensive third, the midfield, but when he gets to the forwards, he's like, this is why we pay so much stupid money for you. Execute. Our job is to get it down to the 18, and we will be hyper controlling, get the ball down to the 18, but once the ball gets to the 18, it's on you. Now, some other managers will say, okay, when we're in the attacking half, freelance, have fun. But on the backside, we're going to be completely locked down and rigid in our controls. To me, there are people who are going to skew this one way or the other. Hudson is in a position right now where he's playing with house money. He knows that.
Yes.
Yeah. He can be and I think this happens a lot. You have coaches. No one gets to this level of management, despite what we may think, by being a complete idiot. At some point, they have demonstrated something to someone to say, let's give this guy a job. Let's give it a run. And I think Hudson knows, look, I'm not the guy who's going to get this unless some kind of crazy freak miracle thing happens. So there's no pressure on me. Okay, yeah, guys, freelance a bit. Have fun, But we're going to take care of ourselves and not embarrass ourselves. But in this phase of the game, we're going to be a bit more expansive and have some fun. I think it's great. I think it's wonderful. But I will say this about the U.S. men's national team coaching search. And that is that previously we've seen nepotism, great. It's reality in business. No. It's a reality in across all facets of business, including the sporting business. But the one thing that always infuriated me about Ernie Stewart's tenure with U.S. Soccer was that I felt he put the clamps down on a very specific type of manager they wanted, which was, white bread, English speaking, this particular style, nothing else. And at the end of the day, say what you want, I don't think it was terribly successful. I think it was a continuation. I don't think it was wildly successful by any stretch of the imagination. Now is the time. Take the handcuffs off. Check every manager. Leave no stone unturned. And really open the floodgates up and say, if someone out there has talent, and I'm going to use a line from The Fugitive here, check every outhouse, henhouse, doghouse, I don't care. Find them and bring them here, because we need to have the best option available to lead this team into what's going to be happening in 26. So whether it's Perez, I mean, look, if let Hudson interview. I don't care. I don't care what he did in MLS, because there are managers who've proven that they are a far better national team manager than they are a club team manager,
Yes.
and then the absolute reverse as well. So I don't care. Call whoever and say, all right, we are going to bring someone in here. I hope they bring someone in with a bit of a spine, some steel about them, and somebody who doesn't, will shake the players from a bit of, some of the, I'm going to say softness that,
Malaise.
a little bit of malaise that can occur whenever you're the hosting team of a World Cup. But, oh, I want I want bilingual coaches. I want coaches that make players of dual national status feel 100% welcome, which I thought Berhalter did really well, but I want to expand upon that. But please, God, just expand the search. And that's one thing that you're seeing with even with Italy now. You'll hear this term called oriundi, which is the dual national kids that they're bringing in, the Argentine kids that Italy's now searching for. They realized they had to. The old ways no longer worked, and I think the U.S. men's national team having some white bread, English only speaking coach or English only training environments, that's not going to work anymore. You're going to have to really expand your thought process and mentality if you want to have significant success in the next World Cup.
Yeah, I think to hit on one point you mentioned, Nick, is like I do think there's value to at least being able to speak the language, English language, because I do think this World Cup specifically, you're going to have a lot more media attention. But like Jose Mourinho speaks English, and Antonio Conte speaks like I'm not talking English as a first language. I'm talking like it would be nice for them to be able to answer questions in English during a press conference, but that's not a qualification that is a must. That's it would be nice if you could type of thing. But yeah, I mean, this is what we've seen from JT Batson, or heard, I should say, from JT Batson and Cindy Parlow Cone, is they are not being, as you said, pigeonholed or handcuffed to one style of coach. I think to credit Berhalter and Stewart a little bit, they brought modern concepts to the U.S. men's national team, but they also were very tied into a very specific way of doing soccer. And as everyone on this call and everyone listening knows, there's a lot of ways to do the soccer.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of ways to do the soccer underneath a certain type of philosophy. And I think when you look at what Hudson's been doing, it's a continuation of the Berhalter brand, if you will. It's not like we're deviating from playing possession-based style of soccer where we're trying to, disorganize the opponents with the ball. Like that, I know that is a throwaway line that people have been made fun of or have been making fun of, but like that is the overall goal of having the ball, right? That's the goal. But I think him being the interim has allowed him to, there's no real stakes, so he doesn't have to feel as controlling. He can just say, okay, hey guys, you're playing here. Remember, we want to try to do some overlaps here, and we want to try to hit Gio here, and then he can spray out wide. And after that, let's go have fun. And that's fine. That's fine. That can work at a national team level.
All right, Bart, can you put on your ref jersey for a minute?
Oh boy. Okay, sure.
Okay. Couple of topics that came across our bows collectively this week. Time wasting.
I hate it.
Issuing of cards.
Love it.
As the line delineates, and then dealing with injuries. And we saw how MLS Next Pro is dealing with injuries, and now if you come on, you're treated, then you've got to be out for 3 minutes. When you are officiating and it comes to time wasting, how do you handle that environment when you know that it's happening? And it's because I know some folks will sit there and they will jump people's ish in like the 50th or the 55th minute because of time wasting, and you're going, come on, dude, it's obvious whether it's a keeper or somebody else. How do you handle time wasting as a ref when you're out there?
I actually had a issue with some time.
Is it a case by case? Is it a case by case thing, or do you
it
have
is.
a set?
So it is kind of case by case. For me personally, I look at it from the I break it up into two or three phases of time wasting, right? So for example, a ball goes out of play for a goal kick.
Mm-hmm.
Are you taking a long time to get the ball back and put it in place to then take that goal kick? Then are you taking a long time to execute the goal kick? So there are, there's multiple ways to look at it, if that makes any sense. So like if you're walking to go get a ball and walking back, then yeah, I'm going to have a conversation like, hey, let's hurry up a little bit. But if you put the ball down quickly and then you're taking time to find the open option or, whatever, unfortunately, that just happens sometimes in soccer, Now you have to kind of judge like, okay, are we just sitting there waiting? Are you doing the whole like, oh, okay, everyone come short to me and I'm going to pass it to you? Just kidding. No, we're going to all go upfield now. You do that once or twice and we've caught on to it. But, again, there are kind of phases of the time wasting. Yes, it's also hard to tell someone they have to run to go get a ball. But you can kind of like, hey, let's pick up the pace a little bit. There's a lot of ways you look for it. When it comes to addressing it, it's I think it's the one thing that we are the most likely to give multiple warnings about. It could be, all right, let's play. Maybe they do it, maybe they don't. The next time they do it, you go, okay, let's play. You're going to say it a lot of times until eventually it just becomes where you think it's egregious. Because unfortunately, we don't have rules about how quickly you have to get the ball back in play.
Yeah.
We don't have a 5-second timer in our head. The ref isn't counting to 5 for you to, once the, whistle blows, you got to inbound it. Personally, and this is just what I do, is I know we have the 6-second rule kind of framework for goalkeepers when they have the ball in their hand. And I try to apply that to how long are they taking to execute restarts, because 6 seconds doesn't feel like a long time. It can be, and it's more of a, okay, after 6 seconds, now I'm clued into like, are we trying to play the ball now? So that's just a me thing, and every referee has their own different thing. But it does come down to the fact that it's a feel of like, is this egregious or not? And unfortunately, some referees don't have that bar where they feel like, okay, this is egregious.
Injuries when it comes to the red hat, the Red Cross and the white helmets, and I know that you don't have like stretchers and white helmets and Red Cross or anything like that. We saw an MLS Next Pro this past weekend where Johnny Viall, late in the match against New England Revolution 2, was cramping up, had to be treated, and the MLS Next Pro rule this year is that if you have to be treated, you're off for 3 minutes. And as Atlanta United 2 was chasing the equalizer, I think Johnny Viall needed that 3 minutes to try to kick the cramps out. But it's an interesting rule when it comes to injuries that they're doing with MLS Next Pro. When it comes to you dealing with injuries and putting time back on the clock and monitoring that kind of stuff, what's your mindset there?
I love it and I don't. Like, I love the idea of like, forcing players to go off the field when they're hurt and actually get evaluated for that injury. Nick, I'm sure you've been a part of seeing some youth soccer games where a kid gets hurt on the field and then all of a sudden he's back in and it's like, wait a second, we didn't actually check this kid out if he was
Correct.
hurt or not. I had one this weekend where a kid got hit in the head, mainly because he was about half the size of the kid he was going up against, as happens when they're 14 years old, and some kids have hit puberty and some haven't. But he was kind of on the ground, and the coach was the coach didn't even come on the field to check on him, which was a whole nother issue that bothered me. But he was almost immediately back on the field of play. And I was like, wait a second now. This kid was down on the ground because he had a head injury. I had to stop the game because there was a head injury. And all of a sudden he's just fine. So I think in that regard, I like the idea of like making sure kids do get checked out, especially again at the Next Pro level. These are kids, they still are kids. maybe not 14, 15, but they're still kids in the grand scheme of things, and their development is what matters. But I don't know if the 3-minute thing is fully the best option. That does feel a little too rigid, and like, I don't know about arbitrary, but definitely a rigid time frame to put on there. But the idea of trying to make sure that the injured player is actually evaluated and receives the treatment he needs is a good thing.
To me, that's where it really comes in, is that you have coaches that, even though they have this, they may really care about their players, right? Like legitimately. And they may have the best intentions of ensuring that, the health and safety of their players is number one, and blah, 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 blah. But I'm sorry, when you're chasing a game, or, it's a tight game and you have to advance, time's running down, you have momentum, and one of your players hits the deck, it's go, 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 get back out there. Come on, come on, come on. That your clock speeds up and affects, like, it has a cascading effect on judgment. And this is not just in soccer, it's all the, like, across sports, right? And that's where something like jiu-jitsu really can help slow that down, because you learn that if you have that fast running clock in your head, you could cause more harm than help, right? And a lot of coaches cause more harm than help by trying to rush players who took one of these headshots right back out on the field. 3 minutes forces that coach to kind of step back and look and say, okay, is this kid really hurt or not? And if we don't really have a clear answer, I just need to sub someone else in, because we're going to lose our momentum. And it may stink from a gameplay perspective to have a star removed, but at the same time, I think it will help, some of these players not do the, act like they've been essentially shot by the second gunman on the grassy knoll because a player brushed by them and disrupted the airflow. So, there has to be something. And I think that the mandatory minimum time, as much as we may hate regulations, at the same time may be the most beneficial thing from a legitimate health and safety standpoint, and also from okay, Nimrod, now you're out of the game for the final 3 minutes. Congratulations, you played yourself. So
yeah, I think 100% what you just said there too is, like, this is trying to cut down on time wasting, because there is now punishment in theory for pretending like you were hurt. Hey, you were hurt, you got to come off the field. And that's something that we have really cracked down on soccer is, hey, if you are hurt and require medical treatment, you have to leave the field. So there's one. And now we're saying, okay, well, that's great. We're going to give you have to take the 3 minutes now. That should hopefully put in the back of a player's mind, like, okay, am I really hurt, or am I trying to waste time? Because you can waste time by pretending you're hurt and then be like, no, I'm fine, and do the whole, like, okay, I'm going to limp off. But like we saw in Ted Lasso season 1, when Roy tells Sam to just stay on the ground for a little bit and then get back up like you're limping and like you're hurt, and then say you're going to continue to play, right? Like, the crowd loves it. Yep. It's a great way to get some brownie points with the crowd. But if you're not actually hurt, then hopefully this is just making them think a second about really enacting that time waste.
And coaches in MLS Next Pro who will be in situations where, and Abby makes the point, Atlanta United too, their roster for the most part was 22 and under, and you had a lot of teenagers there, where you'll have teams going up against you that are adults, and it's going to be, it's going to be up to the coaches now. What message do you want to send, in this situation? And it could be a message where it ends up burning you if you're like, stay down, one of those kind of things. It will be interesting to see implementation and effect when it comes to this particular rule. But no, I wanted to ask you about that one specifically, Bart, because it's not something we've seen before. And there are some other rules, wise man, that are a part of what we're seeing in MLS Next Pro. It goes straight to a shootout to get the extra point. I mean, you're digging. There's that one that's attached to it as well. I mean, Nick, it's going to be It's going to be very, very interesting to see these rule changes this year with MLS Next Pro and see how they're implemented and how they come across.
I like it at this level. I think it's fine. One thing we see in sports in general, especially with extra time rules, is that it just puts more wear and tear on a player. I mean, just go straight to a shootout. Why are we? If you want to, I understand that some of the traditions and need to be preserved. That's fine. You at the top tier, you want to have extra time. Have extra time. You want to do, all this, two halves. What I don't care. Have fun with it. But at lower levels, you have room to experiment and make the game maybe a bit more enjoyable for the fan base. Go for it. Play around. Have fun with it. Because you can always go back to the original rules. There's nothing saying you can't go back to the original rules. But if you want to, we're tied at the end, we're going straight to shootout, baby. Excellent. We don't have to go to, the crazy, wacky end of the bench. Like, who's left to go? We could put Steve in. Oh, God, did we have to put Steve in? I mean, he's the only person who can still walk. I mean, do we need to have that happen? No, just go right to shootouts. Create your lineup, send it out, have fun with it. As long as it's trying to progress the game in good faith, I have no problem with it.
And then, Bart, there are two other rules this year. You've got the teams can choose, the higher seeded team in the playoff can choose their playoff opponent. And then there's a new rule about decreasing preventable match delays. Timed substitution rule, allowing a maximum of 10 seconds for a player to leave the field when he's substituted. If you don't leave play within 10 seconds, the substitute has to wait 60 seconds before entering the field of play, forcing the team to play a man down for the minimum of 1 minute.
Yeah, I don't think that rule makes a whole lot of sense on the grand scheme of things from a hard and fast time, right? 10 seconds and 60. I think that's where I get into these things where we're talking about a sport that we don't have actual stoppages of the clock where we can go, all right, stop the clock. Okay, well, you have now 10 seconds. We don't have that. We have one clock that just runs the entire game. But the purpose and the heart of the rule is good, right? Get off the field quickly, please. You can exit literally any part of the field now. You don't have to exit from the center line anymore. You can go off at any part of the field. So, I think from that regard, it makes a lot of sense. I dislike the playoff thing. I think it's a fun gimmick, but also I don't care.
Well, but I mean, at the same time, it's a lower division. You're trying to draw attention to folks.
Sure.
You're trying to get eyeballs. I mean,
John, I don't. Okay, we're almost at 11 o'clock. I don't give a shit about the.
There's the explicit.
I don't give a shit about the MLS Next Pro playoffs. I'm really sorry. I don't care. I think that's my biggest thing is this league is meant for these types of rules, right? It's supposed to try out these rules that we're figuring out. Does this make sense? I don't people. I was having a conversation with Anu, who's an AO member and also member of several of the other Atlanta United, and he was like, man, I was really upset we didn't win last night. They're talking about the twos, not last night. Yeah, I guess it was last night. They played on Sunday. Yes. And I was just like, man, I'm sorry. I don't care. I don't care about the results. I care about the performances. I look forward to seeing the highlights and seeing how certain players performed. I don't care. It is a developmental league where we're still going to have who knows what combination of players from one match to the next. I care about, did the players play well? Did they develop? Did they grow? Also, I don't feel like Atlanta United as a club has put a lot of emphasis on the twos team as a whole. So why am I expected to care? I'm sorry. I don't care about the playoff structure of a developmental league. I don't care.
Well, I don't think Atlanta United has put as much stress on the wins and losses of the twos.
Exactly.
Yes. They have put an emphasis on player development. I look at AAA baseball, man. Minor league baseball. I'm going there to watch the catfish mascot eat one of the team players, one of the team officials or whatever. Right. I'm there to see that. I'm there for the incredible potato toss. And if the players play well and there's good performances and you see the flash of greatness, then it's like, okay, I was there when, you know.
The Mississippi Braves fans who could just say they were there watching Dansby, that is fantastic, you know.
Right.
Well, and you know, public service announcement. You know why you're going to go see the Gwinnett Stripers on June the 7th. The boss is singing the national anthem. That's
oh, there you go. Talent.
That is actually good to
bring
know.
that.
I'll go to the Stripers game up there up 85 for that.
June 7th, the boss is singing the national anthem before your Stripers game.
All right, so the boss sings the national anthem, and then the Striper eats someone. I call that a win for everyone.
Yeah.
Who's in attendance.
And Coco is right. The Baby Cakes mascot was one of the worst part of NOLA baseball. The New Orleans, instead of the Zephyrs, they went to the Baby Cakes.
Yeah.
And so I love the look, but you think you kind of went a little too far. Okay, so Rich is in this morning, and he has made it through the queue for the All-Star Game tickets. Bart, no offense, but I don't know why Major League Soccer is playing Arsenal for the All-Star Game.
I'm mad they're doing it because I can't go because I have to leave for New Zealand in 3 days after that. So I'm like not going to fly up to DC and back when I have, fly literally across the world.
Nick Jarrett and I solved the problem of the Major League Soccer
We
All-Star
did. We did.
Basically turning it into a Royal Rumble format. And
I just don't know why they just don't do Kiefer Wars. Just do that for the All-Star Game. I think that would be way more fun.
Well, that was what we were saying is that you start off, right? You have some base players, and then like every 30 to 60 seconds, you get some kind of new, like a new player enters the field, but it can be like old classic MLS players. It can be like Eurostar, like, oh, that's Carlos Valderrama's music. And then like, here comes a Pibe, and it's like that's Roberto Baggio. What's he doing here? And like the whole crowd's going nuts. It's nonstop Papapalooza. It gets everyone invested from minute 1 to the 90th minute. And we're not having to see Arsenal's, preschool kids come in.
I mean, the only good thing is the likelihood Matt Turner starts and plays that game is very high. But like even then,
no, because I mean, think about it. You start with goalie wars.
Opponent of the All-Star Game. I'm glad it's Arsenal.
No, I mean,
I can't go see them, but
legitimately, to your point, Bart, I think you do start with goalie wars because you have to have folks in net. So you start with goalie wars, and then every 90 seconds or so, the horn goes off. The train horn goes off at Mercedes-Benz, and somebody comes out. And there are you eliminate offside. You have hot changes. Basically, you can hot tag somebody in to substitute for you. There's no holding up of a board or anything like that. Literally, it's like if Valderrama sees Pirlo, and they're on the same team.
Yep.
Valderrama wants to tag out. All he's got to do is go over, and the hand is extended by Pirlo over the line. Pibe tags, then Pirlo goes in as Valderrama's substitute,
wearing whatever he's wearing.
Yeah.
So if he's wearing a suit, guess what? Dude's playing in a suit.
Yep.
Okay then.
You tell me that's not entertaining, right? Like, and then he pings like some 35-yard cross and then tags out. Like that smooth. Like boom, 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 goal. Okay, I'm tagging out now. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, you got media members who have to play in the second half, and they don't know that they're playing until they get announced.
Yeah.
So if Dempsey is there in his camo tux and he's announced, while he has his IFB in, he's holding a microphone. If Jillian is tagged in, she's there with her IFB holding a microphone as the sideline reporter. And then Jillian's announced, and Jillian goes in. Oh my God, that's Jillian! That's the MLS season pass music, and
see,
Jillian comes out. That kind of stuff. Literally, we solved in an hour. In an hour and 12 minutes last week. We solved MLS All-Star Game saga and made it relevant. Where apparently resale tickets, according to Rich, are at $500 already.
Again, what you're doing is you're turning these European clubs in the current format, you're turning these European clubs into Thanos. That you have to have the Avengers. You have to have a collection of your league's greatest players on team up for one night, for one super spectacular. to take on this ultimate evil from across the ocean.
Yeah.
It all it does is bring your league down, man. I'm sorry. It really just brings your league down. It sucks. I hate it. Have some self-respect, and if you're going to do something, be American about it and be big, dumb, stupid, gaudy, loud American about it. Just go big.
Yeah, I mean,
Chrome Chevys.
Twitch pitch chimed in. It was fantastic.
Yes.
Rich actually has something that we didn't discuss, but it's probably part of the plan. Putting the low hockey boards on the field itself, so nothing goes out of the field of play on a low pass, and it bounces back in play.
Yeah,
that's very, very Philly fever of you. It's very Philly feverish of you, Rich. Very, very Baltimore blast of you. And then
Dayton Dynamo, man.
You have the players hopping over the boards on the hot tag. I get it. That's perfectly fine with me. I have zero qualm about any of this. I mean, Bart, this is one of the most literally, if we could give this to Major League Soccer. Oh, Philadelphia Kicks. Thank you, Rich. 2 X's. Absolutely.
Which one was the Soccers?
San Diego. They still exist.
The Soccers. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And Coco with a legit point. Low hockey boards, and you tell me Walker and Miles are hip checking Felipe.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Well, and Rich also in the end zones. This is also another legit point. Arena Football League field goal nets. Okay, but I think that you've got to have the net so the ball doesn't leave play. So if somebody hits it high and wide, then it bounces off of the arena net and comes back in play. So that way there's no wasted time. There's no wasted motion. The ball is still in play at all times. I think that, Rich, making sure that you get that the nets are up and that your edges are secure keeps everything going, and that momentum is there for the Royal Rumble format for every 90 seconds.
Well, think about the classic Nike commercials, right? The Nike soccer commercials. One where you had it was in the 90s. You had the superstars versus like the Legion of Hell in the Coliseum, right. And then you had the one that was on like the illegal underground Kumite soccer tournament on like the oil tanker where you had it's like they had like the full chain netting around and Zidane was watching from the side, and then you had look, everyone loved those things, right? Everyone loved those. And we could do something very similar. That's all I'm saying.
Yep.
Thunderdome.
Yep. Well,
All-Star Thunderdome.
Absolutely. The tournament in the cage. Absolutely. All right. So we have gone over added time, extra time. Bart actually stayed with us for an hour, which was very.
I've been real productive.
Well, but I mean, as long as you've been productive, the thing is, you're productive here on the show, helping us with the men's national team, and I imagine also that you and that everybody there at SoccerForUS POD is probably going to come out with an episode fairly soon, I imagine.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out if we're recording tonight or tomorrow.
Okay, and so
that's literally what it comes down to.
Anticipating a new episode of the SoccerForUS POD
It'll be out this week for sure.
Your viewing habits for today. Let's see. BN and Espanol have African Cup of Nations qualifying. 2 matches at noon and 4. BN and Espanol. You can pick that up at Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. Helps out the show. Helps out getting addicted to Fanatis. Turkey and Croatia is at 2:45 on FS1. Euro 2024 qualifying is on FS2. Germany and Belgium friendlies on at 2:45. 2 to NA has your triple header of CONCACAF Nations League at 6, 8, and 10. Costa Rica, Panama at 10. Canada, Honduras at 8. Haiti and Bermuda is at 6. The Plus has Australia and Ecuador at 4:30. USL Championship. Tulsa has to turn around on a short week to take on Pittsburgh Riverhounds and Robbie Mertz. Fox Soccer Plus, 11 a.m. and 2:45. Fubo's got 4 matches at 2:45, including our friends from Andorra taking on Kosovo. Will Andorra score? That's the larger question. Pay-per-view. It is Morocco and Peru at 3:30. Well, interesting to see how Peru looks, considering that Pedro Gallese didn't get out of the jail until like 5 o'clock this morning. Paramount Plus has CONCACAF Nations League at 4, 6, 2 at 7, 1 at 8,
Time out, John.
and 1 at 10.
What?
You're out.
Wait.
What?
What about Pedro Gallese?
You didn't know about this?
Tell me.
Apparently last night. So they're in Spain. So Peru and Morocco are playing this friendly in Spain at 3:30 our time, 3:30 Eastern. And let me get my guys. Let me give the guys credit who deserve the credit. So Pedro Gallese, the fans of the Peruvian national team were at the hotel, and they come outside and they're saluting their fans. The Spanish police thought that Yoshi Yotun was one of the celebrants and not one of the players, and so they start having issues and pushing and shoving with Yoshi Yotun. And loosely translating video from Gallese, we want to greet our people, and they begin to put our ish. And so they were not pleased with the intervention of the Spanish police when Gallese, Yotun, and players went to go greet the fans. They thought that Yotun was a fan, allegedly, start pushing and shoving and detain them. And they had to give statements. Gallese was the last to be released from the police station at about 5 o'clock this morning local time. So that's what was going on. Gallese, according to Diego Montalvan, was the last player left. According to the consulate, an officer said that Gallese hit him. Gallese had stated before, we wanted to say hi to our people, and they started to throw punches. And the video is up. All you've got to do, and Orlando is aware of the situation involving Yotun, Valera, and Gallese. So video's out. Got home at 5 o'clock in the morning. Orlando City, quote, Orlando City SC is aware of the situation involving goalkeeper Pedro Gallese and other members of the Peru national team while in Spain. The club has contacted Gallese and his representatives and can confirm that he is safe and unharmed. So, Bart, that is what happened.
Okay, thank you for that. Continue.
Absolutely. So, so that's where you are. And a lot of folks are chiming in with the Rich Ransom, Philadelphia Soul.
Thank you.
All these kinds of things. Yeah, Diego Montalvan. Thank you, Rich, for posting the link to all that. You can go down a Pedro Gallese rabbit hole, see the confrontation between the Peruvian national team and the police there in Spain. Ugly scenes, ugly video, and Gallese apparently was the last to be released from the police station at 5 o'clock this morning. So how will Peru respond against Morocco in Spain? That will be the interesting part. So, Wise Man, what's the latest with you? What's going on?
Just, doing my editing thing, getting the production stuff lined up. Outside of that, nothing. I got nothing for you. More coffee. That's what's needed.
And we'll have our MLS broadcast assignments tomorrow. Dylan Butler joining us tomorrow. Thursday, our friends from the USL show, Kaylor Hodges and John Morrissey, will join at 10 o'clock. That'll be a fun free-for-all at 10 o'clock. And Friday will be the sprint. So, Bart, go ahead and start to send us home. So, since you're here and you're past, you're here at the actual end of the show, Bart Keeler starts to send us home. So, Bart, send us home.
Remember, everyone, it was one game Saturday. We move on. Mucha plata, y'all.
Nick.
Hug your kids, love your kids, take care of your kids, and mucho euro, y'all.
What they said. Play it safe, everybody. We'll be back at 9:05 tomorrow morning. The end of the show, that means I get to do this.